Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well tonight. The quality of the video has some problems here with... Well, I'm here with Fact Not Fiction, another YouTuber. Okay, it seems to have fixed it. Had some technical issue there, but it seems to have been resolved. Welcome, everyone, to the stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Special guest tonight. Fact Not Fiction, would you like to introduce yourself just a little bit quickly? Tell us a little bit about your channel, what you talk about, and... Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all doing well.
Sorry, 1 second. That's me. That's me. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Basically, the channel is about politics, current affairs. It obviously Brexit is one of the main motivating factors, but it's more general politics and current affairs, to be quite frank with you, and trying to put a different slant, trying to tell the truth, just simply trying to tell the truth. Express Times, now even the Times has just gone to hell in a basket. So I decided, based on inspiration from people such as yourself, to be quite frank with you, or Phil, and one other person whom I'd helped write a script for, and I just couldn't take the crap anymore I was reading in the newspapers. So I said, let's do something. That's me. That's me. Other than that, pretty much the same as yourself, I guess.
It's great to have you on. Well, we're gonna get into some questions that were prepared on Discord. Before we begin, guys, I want to thank you everyone for coming on tonight. Remember to smash the like button. Also check out Fact Not Fiction's YouTube channel. Give him a like, give him a subscribe. His channel is small at the moment, but it's growing, and he has some very interesting content, so do check it out. And of course, the super chats tonight are going to a charity called Nowzad, which is seeking to rescue animals from Afghanistan at the moment, because there's as we know, there's a serious situation there, and there's a man, an army veteran from the UK, who's trying to get them out. And as I'm an animal lover, I try to help out those charities. Sometimes they get forgotten, especially in events like this. So if you can also support the channel, no obligation, support the charity, no obligation, of course, but the super chats tonight will go to that. And the first one we have is from Valerio. Thank you so much, Valerio. Hi, Max. In Bedford, I start to see food shortage. Yeah, I think, do you want to say something about that? The food shortage?
A food shortage in Bedford. There's a food shortage everywhere. Quite frankly, I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, because currently the UK has the benefit of access to its own vegetables and fruit that it's now harvesting. But once those vegetables are, although there are problems on labor and transport and everywhere else, but there's going to be even more significant damage. I think you're going to see, if you get the ports backing up and you no longer have those vegetables coming on stream, combined with the truck drivers, I mean, I don't see any solution here. The truck drivers is going to be one main problem, and the second problem obviously is Brexit, and the third problem is that the growing season is basically coming to an end now. So you've got November, December, January, February are going to be really, really tough. Really tough. I don't see how they can overcome it unless they grant temporary visas or whatever way they want to do it. But Priti Patel has been pretty true to form on that one. No immigration means no immigration. So if the people are starving, so be it. It will reduce the population.
Yeah, I think she's ideologically driven 100%. I see it very difficult for her to do a U-turn on that. But there's pressure coming from all sides. I did videos on the Road Haulage Association is putting pressure on the Home Office. The Food and Drink Association is putting, even today, there's word about turkeys, not enough turkeys for Christmas. We sometimes say about Brexiteers or turkeys voting for Christmas, but there may not be enough turkeys at Christmas because of Brexit, it seems, because once again, this is...
I don't see how they can process that. I mean, that's intensive labor at a specific time. How are they going to process them?
Yeah.
I mean, that's seasonal workers, that's immigrant workers at the lower end of the scale. I'm not trying to be derogatory towards immigrants at all. But the fact is that that's a young man's job, 23 years of age. He'll work 12 hours a day. He won't spend a penny. He'll gather all the money and then maybe go back to his own country. Now that availability to that labor is gone. And it's hard work, it's cold work. So I don't see the solution. I don't think it's the turkeys are gone on strike or anything. It's a labor intensive. At that time, it's very labor intensive. So I see difficulties that they cannot overcome. But that never seems to have stopped Priti Patel from making a decision in her life. She's nuts, quite frankly. Absolutely nuts.
I agree. Let's go with the first question that was on Discord. I don't know if you can see it, but I can read it out. So this one is from Reagan Elite and Conservator, who say, what inspired you or made you want to do a YouTube channel, and what is your ultimate goal with it?
There is no ultimate goal, quite frankly. I think if the UK went back into the EU, which, let's be honest, is unlikely, but single market and customs union is definitely there for the taking. The goal of the channel is really to combat fake news. That's the goal, to combat fake news. And I really think Europe is a much better place with the UK with an active role within the EU, as active as we can make it. Europe needs the UK and the UK needs Europe. Unfortunately, most people in the UK don't realize that. And in turn, I think most people in Europe don't realize how important the UK is. I think it's extremely important that the UK contribute to Europe. I think it's very important, extremely important.
Thanks for that. Yeah. We have a super chat from Hedgehog Legs, Animal Charity. Great. Thank you so much for that. Very kind of you. And also Constance Goodwill for the dogs in Afghanistan. Thank you so much for that. Very kind of both of you for that super chat. Just to pick up on that point about as your channel is fact not fiction, and unfortunately there is a lot of misinformation online. And we're also starting to see, like, from the likes of GB News, Gammon Brexit News, or whatever you want to call it, who are convinced of we need to, defend Brexit at every turn.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things happening. I think quite frankly, the media are panicking. I know, well, not panicking is perhaps the wrong term to use, but I've noticed the Telegraph, or the Express rather, who, let's face it, just printed whatever they wanted to print. They didn't care one way or the other. Now I see them using this Euro for, or Facts for EU, as some sort of analytical, statistical service that is like just, opening the curtains and drawing back the curtains for everybody to see the glory of Brexit. They never did that before. They never really depended on statistics or the truth. Obviously not the truth, but they never depended on statistics. And now I see them using statistics. Falsely, of course, but nonetheless, I see them using it. And I think that's a good sign. I think they can also sense that the public are a little bit, they're going to get pissed off. If you don't get turkeys onto the tables at Christmas time, or the right food onto Christmas time, I believe the people in the UK are going to say, hold on for a minute, hold it. What the hell's going on? I think that's going to
but
happen.
it's the pandemic, don't you know?
That hasn't worked. I think that worked for now. I think that worked up to a few weeks ago. They're not really talking about the pandemic now. I don't see it maybe as much as perhaps I should, Max. Maybe you would disagree with that,
No, no,
or the
no,
or
no,
the
no.
or the
No, but
viewers.
I think you're right. Yeah, I have. It's been mentioned a few times, but the number of times it's been used is decreasing. So I think people are
Yes,
realizing, because you can't continue to use. It was an alert, and it's, you're supposed to self isolate for, what is it, 10 days, but you can't continue
yes,
using that for 2 months. It's not a valid excuse.
yes, absolutely. Because then it'll throw out the app.
And but also it doesn't provide a solution. Yeah, the pandemic is
No,
the problem. Okay, but how do we get over this? That should be that should be
yeah,
that should be the question, and not just, okay, we have
yes,
this
of course.
pandemic problem.
Yeah, but asking Boris Johnson to come up with a solution is like asking the sun to rise in the west. That's not going to happen.
No. CGM, thank you so much for that super chat as well. Very kind of you. I'm just looking. I think we have some more super chats. That's it for now. Let's go back to the questions. Let's see. Our next question is from Conservator, and this is to both of us. What would be your ideal fictional, not fact, UK look like? So, what would an ideal UK look like to you? Do
To
you want to go? Do you
me,
want to go first? Yes.
I know I'd like you to go first. I'll bow to
Okay.
the master. I'll feed at the feet of the master.
Um, I think the ideal UK was the one we saw back in 2012. When the Olympics were being held in London,
Yeah,
it was very, very positive, very open. It was a
yes.
huge success, apart from Boris Johnson on the court, of course. Um,
Mm,
apart from that,
mm,
I think it was a real high point. A nation that was open, very positive. There was, of course, there was the anti-immigration part, but that was a fringe movement, and also the Brexiteers were, before they were called Brexiteers, the Eurosceptics. They represented a fringe movement. They did not represent the mainstream. But I think
yeah,
2012 was, if the UK could go back to that time, I think it'd be something very positive. I'm not sure if that's
yes.
exactly what the question was. What are your feelings on that?
I would think your time frame is bang on. Um, I think that 2012 was a fantastic time for the UK. It was a wonderful time, and it was a great Olympics, not just as a spectacle, but also as another performance. I think it was their best ever. Um, with regard to going forward, being hopeful, dreaming would be back into the EU. Um, but I can see a number of problems there going back into the EU. Um, I think the best you can hope for is the single market and customs union. Um, and I fear for the UK, and I fear for Europe if that does not happen. I think there are very serious dangers um, on the horizon if the UK isolates itself from the EU. That is not going to go down well, and history has taught us that. An isolated nation of that significance is very, very dangerous in such close proximity to its neighbors, especially if their neighbors are doing well and they're doing badly. That's a recipe for disaster. That's playing with fire.
Knife Raven, thank you so much for that super chat donation from the hamsters to the dogs. Animal solidarity. Um, okay, let's move on. The next question is I think you'll like this one. What makes you most angry with the Brexiteers? Do you want to go
Farage,
first, or Farage?
Farage, that core. Um, I hate Farage, despise him. Never liked him. He's a dangerous person. He's another. I think Russell Grant described him as a penny Enoch Powell.
Yes.
I think that's very unfair to Enoch Powell. I don't think Enoch Powell was as bad as Farage. Um, I would put him more on the lines of Mosley, to be honest with you. Um, that what they it's the stupidity of what they think they stand for. They think they're standing for a greater Britain. I don't look. I spent so many years, decades in the UK. The UK are not racists. They are not. But if you were to ask your average European or average person from anywhere in the world, right now, today, they will think that English people are racist. And that's not fair. That's very, very upsetting. Brexit has stolen the soul of the UK people, and they don't know it yet. And that cannot be allowed to continue. Cannot be allowed to continue. Would be my view. Max, I'd be really welcome your view on that one.
No,
Great question, by the way.
But it's a great question, yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I was a pound shop Mosley. Yeah, it's thanks in the chat. Yeah. I tend to joke about Brexiteers on the channel, but people like Farage are extremely dangerous. I think I'm still caught between whether he's really racist or he just knows that there are enough people he can convince to vote for him and to support him, and he's using them as a tool. But in a sense, that is being racist as well, because you're egging on people. And we had a bit of a chat about this before the stream, where you said he's like a guy at the back, egging people on, and I agree with that.
Yes, he is.
And it's very dangerous, because he's the type of person who will, as you said, lead from behind, not lead from in front, and he will. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No. Please, I agree. 100%.
And he's the type that is in a sense charismatic. He's able to say the right things. He's able to present himself as just an ordinary guy down the pub, someone you can have a beer with. And I think he's created this persona of an ordinary guy, just Jack the Lad or whatever. And he's far from it. he's worked in the city. He's a multimillionaire, but he presents himself as an ordinary guy, and he's convinced the ordinary people of Britain, not all of them, of course, but he's convinced a significant number of people that he's the right person to be speaking on their behalf.
Yeah. He has. Well, he earned 700,000. I did the figures on it. He earned more than 700,000 in the same year. He was down in the pub saying he was just like every other skint bloke in the pub. He portrays himself as a man of the people. You're just an ordinary working bloke. Yet he hasn't worked an ordinary job in his life. He didn't have an ordinary education. He didn't have an ordinary step or open door policy into Threadneedle Street where his father worked. He didn't have, like every other bloke going to the US. The guy is a complete and utter user of people. He is a waste of space. He's dangerous and a compulsive liar. I don't think he's as smart as people say he is. I don't think so. Anytime I've seen him go up against a debate, he doesn't debate the person. He plays to the crowd.
Yeah.
He did it on Question Time. He's done it every single time. He plays to the crowd. If he gets into a real conversation with smart people, he's made look ordinary very easily. O'Brien annihilated him. James O'Brien annihilated him. Claire Byrne annihilated him when he went on his rant of, Ireland voted against the Lisbon Treaty, and then were forced to vote again, which he was trotting out for 5, 10 years. He was saying that crap until he got called out and then got hammered, being told, well, actually, that's not what happened. And then he comes out with the lines, well, I think Ireland will leave. Sorry, 88% support. He was going to a massive rally down in Tralee where there was a huge crowd of 600 people, massive. There are more people in one bar on a Friday night in any Irish town than there would be at Farage's thing. So those lies, and he propagated those lies. But if he comes up against you, Max, or he comes up against, God help him if he came up against Phil, who would just rip him a new one, because you have the facts, I have the facts, and Phil has the facts, but he doesn't talk about facts. He talks about feelings.
Exactly.
There's never facts coming in. He never voted in a single European Parliament bill. Did you know that? He never voted once. Mind, he never shut up talking, but he never voted once, but never shut up. That's quite a remarkable achievement. But it's not a sign of intelligence. It's a sign of cowardice, because he knew he could get called out on that vote later as he was pursuing his own personal agenda. That guy has been about his own personal agenda since he tried to get a foothold in the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
He's been about that, in my opinion. He's a cur. Hate the guy.
And
I tell you, I hate him.
Maybe once or twice. But also the point that, you know, he contradicts himself as well. So when it came to Norway, for example, yeah, we have to be like Norway. What's wrong with Norway? And then he was like, no, nobody voted to be like Norway. So he forgets his own.
Means out.
Yeah.
Yes.
He forgets his own rhetoric from time to time, which proves that he doesn't really.
Days ago, Max, he repeated it. The same crap. He was talking to. It wasn't Jacob Rees-Mogg, although he was talking to Jacob Rees-Mogg. He was talking to somebody else on his Farage for a pint crap, and he said, "Well, you know, we could have gone Norway," and he shrugged his shoulders as if, I mean, I would have accepted Norway, whereas his document released in February said absolutely not, no way Norway. But his document released 4 weeks previous said Norway. It's like, hang on, which is it here? But nobody called him out because his media buddies are very strong and very hard to combat.
Yeah,
very hard.
But even in the BBC, like when he's on the BBC, he's hardly challenged, which is another problem.
That's a BBC problem.
Yeah,
giving a politician the same weight. Let's say talk about climate change, and you give a politician the same weight as you would give a climate change scientist, attaching the same weight of expert opinion in that scenario just doesn't make sense. You know, what a politician doesn't know more about the politician cannot contradict a scientist. You just can't. That's stupid. It's like. I know it doesn't make any sense.
No, but it's like, look, I have some heart problems. Should I speak to a cardiologist, or should I speak to this guy down the road, who has an opinion? It's like, no, they're not the same thing.
Yeah. No, go to the vet.
Well, no, that'd even be an improvement over Farage, of course. At least the vet has some sort of training.
Hopefully.
Not in the same.
Not from Romania.
Razormouth has a question for you. He says, he or she says, is that a Dublin accent, loud-based Wexford lad?
Is that a Dublin accent, you loud-based Wexford lad?
No, I think this is a loud. No, sorry, Razormouth is from Loud. Loud, is loud-based, but from Wexford. Sorry. And he's asking. Right. He's asking if you have a.
We all have our crosses to bear. We all have our crosses to bear. This is a 100% Liberty's Dublin accent. This is the way we went to the electrocution classes as children.
Elocution.
The elocution, as Brendan Grace used to say. Yeah, my mum and dad. My dad was he was a real dub. My mum was from Dublin. My grandparents were from Dublin. I think most of my grandparents were from Dublin. My great grandparents, rather. So basically speaking, we are thoroughbred Jackeens. But no, I was born I was born just outside the Liberties and went to school in Guinness for 10, 11 years.
How long have you been away from Dublin?
Um, I've traveled throughout the world since my early 20s. That's what I do. My work takes me all over the world. Um,
And
that's
you've
what it
never
is.
lost the accent.
I would certainly hope I didn't. I'm extremely proud to be Irish. And I wish I could be more. I'm not as proud to be European as I should be, because I've traveled really extensively and I've seen some of the things and read and witnessed it in museums. Some of the things that European nations did in South America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and they were pretty horrific, you know. And I sometimes feel we haven't made restitution for that, or we brush it under the carpet as if it didn't happen. You go to South America, everybody speaks Spanish except Brazil, speak Portuguese. How did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, how did that happen? Go to Australia, everybody speaks English. How did that happen? So I'm not. I think we as Europeans, I think we have a duty of care to lead. Um, I think we really genuinely have a care. We have a duty of care to lead. I don't think we've behaved very well. Um, there's lot of room for improvement.
And hopefully, with the vaccine rollout, there has been a huge exportation of vaccines um, to
Yes,
developing nations from the European Union. So that's something positive, I
yes, there
think.
has, and that's wonderful. Problem with it is that the developing nations don't know it. Um, Southeast Asia, they don't know that those Pfizer vaccines are coming from the EU. They don't know that they're getting those vaccines because of the decisions that the EU made. They don't know that because the EU are asleep at the wheel. In from their PR point of view, though there's a surprise, which they always tend to be asleep at the wheel. Sorry, Max, I need to adjust the camera. I've got
Sure,
slippage on this camera.
that's a better
Um,
shot.
excuse me. You can see more of my ugly face. I think that the EU do a shockingly poor job on promoting things that they do well. And I don't think Brexit would have happened if they promoted the things that they did well.
I,
But they
I,
didn't.
I,
They
yeah,
didn't.
I agree and disagree on that, because I agree to a certain, yeah, and I've said this before on the channel, is that the EU do wonderful things. I give an example once of when I visited Belfast, and there was the Titanic Museum, and if you go to the Titanic
Yes.
Museum, there's the plaque outside, and there is the European
Yes.
flag there saying that European money
Co
helped
sponsor.
construct this. Yes, and this is
Yes.
and most people just walk past and they never hear about it, and they never think about it. And the European Union are not very good at promoting themselves and promoting everything that they do. If you go looking
Yes.
for it, you can find the information without a problem. But
Yes.
unfortunately, and it's not just a British thing, a lot of European politicians are very happy to blame the EU when, oh, the local hospital is closing, it's the EU's fault, or
Yes.
the roads are
Yeah.
bad, well, it's the EU's fault. But when money is coming in, they're
It's
pretty,
that's because of me.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. 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 It wasn't me. It wasn't me. That was me. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's uh, but Max, we can disregard it, but that type of lack of professionalism isn't acceptable. The EU should not be the case. That's the EU asleep at the wheel. Again, I don't think that type of lackadaisical approach that they do adopt and say, well, what to do. But yes, I'll tell you what. This is what happens when you don't do it. Brexit happened. One of the reasons was they think the EU are interfering. I mean, the amount of people that were complaining about the EU signs on the motorways.
Yes.
I mean, instead of the EU coming out publicly, take an ad out in the local paper and say this, 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 this. If the EU had spent 5% of the money that they spent as a result of the Brexit in negotiations and travel and all that bull, if they'd spent 5% of that budget on taking out adverts in the Brexit newspapers, we might have had a different result. 5%. You know, spend $1 million on it. That's all they would have had to spend. Put $1 million into advertising and say, this is what we've done. Here are the rumors that were circulated. Not true. Not true. Not true. Bendy bananas, pink rhubarb. Not true. And some home truths, you know.
Although that would have been the responsibility of the British government. The British government should have been doing that. Should have been informing the public. You know, I said before that if there was a referendum, although I think there shouldn't have been a referendum, that was the job of Parliament. But if there was a referendum, they should have done it like the Swiss do. Have a body that's set up to provide information, transparency, objective truth about it. To explain these are the positives, these are the negatives. If you vote, this is what's going to happen. If we remain, this is what's going to happen. Of course, there was none of that in Britain. You had on one side crusty old politicians and celebrities saying we need to remain, and then on the other side you had Farage and his fools and his snake oil, and convincing people we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yes.
You know, how do you fight against that? And I'm very frustrated with the EU for not stepping in. But I understand at the same time, if they did intervene, perhaps politicians would be saying the EU shouldn't be intervening. This is our field. This is our turf. Don't come in.
No, well, it's not. It's not. I disagree. It isn't just to do with the UK. It's to do with the EU. It is just as much the business of the EU as it is the business of the UK. And the EU are a protectionist organization. Anybody who thinks the EU has been set up, you know, for the betterment of mankind is a fool. The EU has grown and amalgamated their different rules throughout the member states for the benefit of the EU. That's what it's about. It's about serving the best interests of EU members, and keeping the UK in the EU would have served the best interest of EU members. They failed that. They failed their fellow EU member states, and I'm talking about the commissioners failed the EU member states. I think, although Ursula von der Leyen wasn't there at the time, I forget the previous
Juncker.
Juncker, he failed, and I believe the British government, I think David Cameron, well, he was just such a muppet anyway, and he failed. I mean, it was just a calamity, 3 calamities in a row. It was just unbelievable. And Farage was able to step down with his, I think he took that golden handshake. I've called the EU every month since January to find out, did Farage take his golden handshake? You know, he's entitled to 170,000 golden goodbye handshake.
Is it the pension you're talking about?
Not pension. No. This is for 20 years of service.
Oh my God. Service.
Yeah, it's service. All he did was stand up in Parliament and, I mean, stand up in Parliament and berate everybody he could. So that's hardly a service. But yeah, he's entitled to, having served 20 years. It's either 125 or 175,000. Maybe somebody on the stream would know. He is entitled to it, but I don't know if he claimed it. Because he never said he wasn't going to claim it. He kind of said, "I'll think about it."
Well, if it's Farage, of course he claimed it. he's doing cameo videos for.
Yeah, 175. Is it 175 pounds? The new price is £175, or is that the birthday
I don't
thing? And
remember.
one of them is 100. He's got several earners, by the way, several of them.
Doesn't he have
Um,
enough to just go away and live on an island somewhere in the Caribbean and just drink martinis all day and just leave people alone? That's what
oh
that's
no,
what
no,
I'd
no.
love him to do. In the same way with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, look, go live. Go back to the United States, write a book or whatever. Just leave Britain alone. If you would
I
actually
don't think
do
anybody
more.
would buy Boris Johnson's book.
Maybe not.
No, I
We
really, I really don't think so. I mean, Boris Johnson blew it at the G7. He blew it. He blew his. I mean, he blew his own prospects. In the future on the lecture circuit. I don't think anybody would. The comedy shows would want him.
probably.
Jeremy Clarkson might take him back in, or maybe your man Carr would take him in on out of 8 out of 10 cats countdown. And I think Boris Johnson would be extremely
Have
entertaining.
I got news for
But
you?
that
Maybe.
isn't, yeah, that sort of stuff. But that isn't going to put food on the table for long because he's a one-trick pony. He's not
They'll
he's
invite him
not
on once and then yeah.
exceptionally.
Mm.
Yeah, he's lazy. He doesn't do the research. He doesn't do the research, so he can't continue. He's not going to get his job back in the Express newspaper. They're hanging him, or not rather the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Both the Telegraph, the Express, the Mail, and the Times are hammering Johnson. So they're not going to give him a job as a journalist. So where's he going to make money? I think he's blown it. I think he's had a great thing going, and I think he's blown it. He's a joke. He's a charlatan. He may be a good comedian. I think he is actually quite a good comedian. But I don't think he's got a lot of options open. I really don't. A book, nobody in the
There's
US is
always
going to buy
there's
that
always
book.
GB News.
I don't think. Do you think GB News is going to be around?
No, well, maybe
Um,
yeah. Which will last longer, Boris Johnson or GB News?
I think GB News will. I think Johnson will be gone within 6 months at the rate he's going. The way that the newspapers are ramping up, I think the Conservatives have to. They cannot go into the next election with Johnson.
No.
I don't think they can. And if I was the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'd probably commit suicide. But if I, but that being said, I don't think the Conservatives can allow this to trundle on. They need to get a new leader because you've got the different newspapers, one promoting Liz Truss, God help us, the other promoting Rishi Sunak, the other promoting, I mean, they're just various different factions.
Can I ask
Sajid Javid is being promoted also.
who would your money be on? Mine would be on Rishi Sunak.
Um,
Although Liz Truss,
I'm,
while sounding insane, maybe is not so
because
insane.
she is,
Yeah, no, but
she is insane.
because she's very popular with the Brexiteers.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Sajid Javid. Of those three, I'd be saying Sajid Javid, because he's the cash cow for the Conservative Party. He's the real cash cow because he can make the Conservative cronies so much money with the NHS. I think the Conservative Party can make a lot of money from Sajid Javid. I think if Sajid Javid goes in, Priti Patel is going to have to get kicked out because the Conservatives are hemorrhaging votes because of her. She's too close to that Faragean type politics. I think they need to shut up. I'm not sure if Farage is going to come after the Conservatives or he's going to come after Labour. I don't think Labour have enough money to buy him out to stop him from running against them, whereas the Conservatives do. But I don't see certainly don't see Johnson there before the next election. That cannot happen. Conservatives are taking too high a risk. So why would you wait another I think it's another 2.5 years before the next election, and not move him now. I think they have to move him now. If I was if I was the CEO of that company and he was my general manager, and I'm looking at a possible management buyout in 2.5 years' time, and I see that everybody I'm talking to is talking bad things about this guy, I'll get rid of him. I'd have no choice for the benefit of the company. So I think the Conservative Party, the ERG, are not fools. Jacob Rees-Mogg has been exceptionally quiet. When your only claim to fame in the last month was appear on the Nigel Farage show, you know that there are things happening in the background.
Okay, I just want to jump to the next. There's a super chat here. This is from Ton, who says, history happens only twice, the later being the caricature of the former. Example, the British Empire and global Britain. I think that's an interesting point. Definitely, I know I'd agree with that.
What's your one?
Yeah, no, it's I believe the empire was on its last legs back at the end of World War One. I think that's when the empire began to crumble.
Before World War One.
Yeah, maybe it was even before World War One. I think it was around that time anyway, and and it's a shell of its former self. But for some people, it's just dormant and it's waiting to come back. And there's a lot of those people about.
Yes, it's amazing.
Okay, let's move on. What will it take, as we're sort of talking about the Tories? The next question is from Buxton, who says, what will it take for people to stop voting for the Tories? So maybe not just Johnson, but the Tories in general. Or is it possible to convince?
Yes, Keir Starmer has to get off his ass. Stop playing the Conservative game. Stop trying to win elections in the House of Commons. It's never going to happen. He's got to win elections. He's got to get out. He's got to roll up his sleeves and get dirty. I am not, by the way, a Labour supporter. I'm not a Conservative supporter. I'd lean more towards the Lib Dems or the Greens, but I don't think. I think everything that has to be possibly done needs to be done to get the Conservatives out. I think they're poison, absolute poison. The absolutely disgusting thing they did with raising the energy bills for the end of October, that's going to hit the very poorest the hardest. They're going to hit. They got a license to print nearly 1.8. I actually did the figures yesterday again. I was wrong with my figures at 1.8. They just created the ability for them to print £2 billion of poor people's money. At exactly the same time, they're pulling out the 20 quid, the 20 quid a week as well. So they're getting hit with £120 and they're losing 80. So they've got a net fall of £200 a month. I mean, what type of government does that? And then spends £7 billion on a PCR, a rapid COVID test that, when they signed the deal, has already been pulled off the market in the US, not just by the FDA, but by the company themselves, and yet they still spend $7 billion. I mean, what type of conscience is left, Max? They've no conscience at all. Zero. They don't care. It's very upsetting. Upsetting.
And it's upsetting
that Keir Starmer needs to step up.
Yeah, and he needs to call it out, and they need to really. I've said this before, and I feel like I'm getting blue in the face by saying this, that they need to have a vision. They need to separate themselves from the Tories. They have to say, this is what the Tories are, this is what we are, and we're the complete opposite. And unfortunately, it seems, and I know people on the stream may be upset with me for saying this, but I really think Keir Starmer needs to
Step up.
step up. He needs to become a bit more aggressive.
He's
Look,
a lawyer, you know.
in the House of
He needs to
Commons,
be a fighter.
in the House of Commons, he's great. He has his moments and he's wonderful, and I do compliment him on that. But the problem is not the House of Commons. You need the voters on your side. Now,
Yes.
I think we're going to get to it in a moment, but it seems that within the Labour Party there's always going to be infighting, and well, I leave that to there's a question in a moment. Before we get to that, we have Beetle, who has a super chat. Thank you so much for that super chat. The inevitable heat death of the universe should make a dent in the Tory vote. So we just have to wait for the heat death of the universe, and then the Tories will be out of power. Yes,
Thanks. Now I feel so much better.
Before we get on to the Tory one, we have a question here from Reagan Elite, and it's about something we spoke a little bit when I spoke to you earlier today. It's about UBI. So what are your thoughts on UBI, or would you like me to go first?
Oh, I knew someone. I knew the guys are going to get me on that one. Okay, okay. I have to be very careful here. Okay. Yeah. I am an out and out capitalist by nature. It runs in my veins. If I opened up my veins, there would be little euro and US coins would drip slowly out of them. And then as I went to the femoral artery, they come out in Benjamin Franklin's and 500. So that's how much of a capitalist I am. However, I'm a capitalist with a conscience. There is no excuse for any nation in the Western developed nations to have poor people. There is no excuse for that. And I think we all have to accept responsibility. Now, how that's done, the mechanics of it, and we spoke earlier that in Ireland you have the children's allowance, and in the UK you have children tax benefits. So there's a set payment that goes out on children's allowance, no matter how wealthy you are. And I see that that's easily implementable. And then in your normal tax system, if you earn more than £50,000 or £70,000, 80, 90, whatever way you want to do it, you say, right, okay, because you automatically got your children's allowance money, we're going to decrease your tax allowance. That's not rocket science to do that. That's just a few lines of code. And I see no difference between the children's allowance system and, as you call it, the UBI. But universal basic income, I'm not sure how that would work. I'd say UK basic income, I'm all for it. But on a universal basic income, you can't have that system where you have corruption. And there is corruption in more than 50% of the world, and serious corruption. People in Europe don't see it. You go to Africa, you go to South America, you go to Southeast Asia, you go to Asia. Corruption is what rules the route, not governance. Corruption. So I don't think it'll work.
I don't think it would fix corruption, but its objective is not to get rid of corruption. I see it as a silver bullet to a lot of problems. For example, homelessness. Most people who are homeless, they can't get a home because they don't have the money, they don't have a job, so there are many steps they have to take in order to get to a home, yeah. And money is the principal problem there.
Yes.
Access to healthcare is another issue, especially in the United States. For example, they don't have a public healthcare system, or they have for older people or Medicare or whatever. But generally, or poverty, for example, food banks. Why do we have food banks? If we gave people a universal basic income, we would eliminate the need for food banks, because universal credit isn't enough, welfare isn't enough. People are on universal credit and working and going to food banks. That's unacceptable.
I mean, it's shocking. It's the only business that's expanding in the UK, food bank
Yes.
industry. I
And
mean,
you,
it's shocking.
you even had Tory voters saying, "Yeah, I voted for them because look, they've created new food banks. We have more food
Yeah,
banks in our time." They were saying it unironically.
yeah. I always find if you put a little piece of lead in people's ears, about 6 grams of lead in their left or right ear, and apply it with a Smith and Wesson 38, will solve that problem. Um, there is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the animal drink it. There are some really stupid people out there. You know, I'm proud of the. I'm proud of food banks. I mean,
I was thinking about what you had said earlier about the child benefit, and that was a perfect example because it's a type of
yeah,
UBI that already exists. If you have a child, you get it. It's not means
yep,
tested. I know,
nope,
a big criticism of it is that it's not means tested, but it's because it's not means tested. You don't need the bureaucracy behind it. You just send it out to everyone who has a
yes,
child, and
absolutely,
I understand that a UBI is not perfect. There are questions over inflation. Would it cause inflation? I don't know if that's a real argument. There are, people. There is this idea that it would convince people not to work, but I don't think that has actually worked out that way because what happens is,
that's such nonsense.
yeah,
People saying that. You're absolutely right, Max. It's just nonsense.
because
People will want to
if
work.
people want, if people, I've spoken to people and they said, yeah, but if we give people who don't want to work this money, they're not going to work. But I said, yeah, but if they don't want to work anyway, they're not going, if giving them money isn't going
Yeah,
to convince them to do
people
something
want to
different.
work. People need. This idea of people don't want to work is just rubbish. People do want to work. It's in our nature. We want to contribute and mix with people. We want to feel important. Um, if you look at people who don't want to work, yes, there are some. Oh my God, of course there are. But for every one, there's 10,000 who do want to work, and they want to feel that they're contributing and not just getting carried along in the storm water. It's such a ridiculous argument. And they just want to collect children's allowance or social welfare, and that's why they have so many children. I mean, seriously, a woman gets pregnant and has a baby because what? She can get extra money. That's, I mean, really? People believe that story? I've never heard such rubbish in all my life.
But
They make it,
where do they get that where do they get that poison in their ear from? They get it from the tabloid newspapers. They're told,
yes,
and we're back to
yes,
we're back to the Brexit and the Farage stuff again,
yes,
where it's, who tells you that your biggest enemy is the single mother who has, 3 or 4 kids and she goes on holiday every year to Barbados,
yeah,
and she lives in a, five bedroom house with a car and a swimming pool, like, the newspapers are telling people this. The newspapers are telling people you need to be angry, not with us who are telling you these lies. You have to be angry with that woman. You have to be angry with the state. You have to be angry with someone other than us. We're the ones telling you the lies, but you have to be angry with, the poor people.
yeah,
And in the same way with Farage, I know we're getting a bit off topic here, but the same way with Farage when he's convincing people to be angry, foaming at the mouth angry with people who are crossing the sea in a rubber boat because
yeah,
they want to claim asylum in the UK, and they can't claim asylum in the UK through the normal channel because that channel is closed, and they have to
yes,
cross the
and
sea because there's no other way. And he
yes,
convinces people to
and
be angry with them. Sorry, he convinces people to be angry with them,
yes,
and these are poor people who have nothing.
and who could die in the crossing. And by the way, they're coming from a country that takes 3 times more refugees than they do.
Yeah.
France has 3 times more. It's more than three now. 3 times more refugee applications in France than there is in the UK, and it's 8 times more success rate. So but also the story Farage used to give out. We leave Brexit will stop illegal immigration. If it's illegal now, it's going to be illegal then. If it's not illegal, it may stop. But this idea of classifying immigration as illegal, and that was deliberate.
Yeah.
That was deliberate. He was classifying immigration as illegal, all immigration. And it just, I thought of myself back in the 80s. Now, a lot of you won't remember this, but probably weren't, a lot, maybe not even born.
You
But I
you
remember
don't know the demographic of my channel.
no, I
It's the older group.
it's all farts like me, is it? Okay. I remember the anti-Irish um, feeling in London in the early 80s and the late 80s because of the violence that was taking place. It was palpable, um, and it was understandable. I'm not saying it was justifiable, but it was understandable. Farage has managed to whip that sentiment up to a scale not seen before. Um, Even people who support vote reform were still of the mindset that, look, we need to get the immigration thing sorted out, no doubt, but don't leave the EU. And the facts that when you looked at the figures, you're going, the statisticians were saying there is no problem with the immigration. They're net contributors, you muppets, with legal immigration from Romania and Poland and even the Irish and Spanish or whatever. They were net contributors. That's the type of immigration you want. Young males who aren't here to rape our women and take our jobs. They're here to do work as much as you can give them and they'll horse it out. And he managed to turn the entire nation against even the concept of immigration.
You even had the Labour Party. You had, and I was really disappointed to see this, Andy Burnham in the House of Commons saying, from the Labour Party, saying we need to deal with immigration. Immigration is a problem. We mustn't let the right wing take control of this issue.
Yes.
By buying.
I remember that. Yeah. Sickening. Stupid. Fell right into the trap.
Yeah.
What problem? You've got 0.02% of the UK population in immigration, maybe this year. 0.02%. You're going hardly an invasion. It's hardly an invasion. But that shows you how bad things are for Farage. He can't talk about anything else now. He can only go at the immigration. And now Priti Patel has taken up that baton, that mantle. And I think Farage is. I think Brexiteers are in trouble. If you have to rely on the likes of our good friend Jeff Taylor or Maher Tousi, who's a slimy git, he makes Farage look good actually, and Belfield, GB News. I think it's in trouble. I really genuinely believe it's in trouble. The mainstream media, the Conservatives have lost their domination of the mainstream media. Now the mainstream media are splitting up between the various factions. So I think it's a case of divide and conquer. That would be my view.
Very good. No, I agree with you. I think we're on the same page there. Well, let's move on to the next question. It says here, you often criticize, this is for you. It says, you often criticize the Tories, but what do you think of the Labour Party? Can they be a better opposition, and how? I know we sort of touched on it with Starmer, but do you want to say a bit more about the Labour Party?
Can the Labour Party sort it as it is now? No. Absolutely not. The Labour Party Starmer needs to make a decision. Now, he excommunicated several guys last week. I think that's a start. But he needs to make a decision. Can the Labour Party survive without its northern red wall? I'm not saying he should deliberately walk out and sabotage it, but I'm saying something has to break in the Labour Party.
What do you think
I,
about what do you think about them kicking out Ken Loach?
you know, look, Ken Loach, what was he, 85 years of age, and Ken Loach had the luxury and security of speaking for the more left-wing factions of the party for the last, as I can remember, and inevitably he sat on the sidelines. He sat on the fence on most issues. He never gave his. He did. He was like Farage. He never really gave opinions. He started I think four breakaway parties from the Labour in his career. He was George Callaway's best mate. I don't think he was moved out because of his apparent anti-Jewish sentiment. Um, I'm not even sure he is anti-Jewish. He's definitely anti-Israel as a country, but I'm not sure he is anti-Jewish. And the same, by the way, for George Callaway, or George Galloway rather. But Starmer had to kick him out because he 4 times you set up a party in opposition to Labour. Get out. Where was he during the Brexit debate? He was nowhere. Most people didn't know he had. Most Irish people didn't know who he was if it wasn't for the straw that of the barley movie. I think he produced and directed that one.
Okay.
I think that most Irish people would know him from there. Most English people don't know him at all. The Northern Labour guys, the extreme part of the left-wing part of the Labour Party, they do know him. But the majority of people don't have any time for him. That's why Galloway, anybody who sets up, if you've got a virus in your company, you cut out the virus no matter the damage because it's going to bring down the company. That's the rule. And he was a virus. I don't think it'll do Starmer any harm at all. I think it's a good thing that he did it. Whether it's a good thing in the long term for the Labour Party, I don't know, but it's a good thing for his leadership. He has to demonstrate that strength of will. I think they've kicked out 1,000. Is that right? 1,000 people that I read.
I know if you look at Navarra media, they're not too happy about it because it's mainly their people that they're on the side of Jeremy Corbyn.
Corbyn.
But like, you know, whether you agree with Corbyn or not, Corbyn is old news. Corbyn has to step aside.
Yes.
But what you need in a party is, okay, you've had your run, you failed. You know, he won the argument, okay. But did he win the election? No, but he stepped aside. He has to step aside, and then he has to fall in line. In the same way that if Keir Starmer is removed, Keir Starmer steps aside and he falls in line with the next leader. That's the way it has to be.
Yep.
The goal has to be getting into power, not dividing the party before it gets into power. And I think that's a huge problem on the left. The problem with the left is that they're more concerned about internal power than real power. They're more interested in power within the party than actually running the country. And for some people, they would actually prefer that. And some people will come out and say, look, I'm more interested in controlling the Labour Party than actually sitting in government. Because when you sit in government, you have responsibility. You make decisions that impact people's lives. And for some people, they don't want to be involved in that.
Yes, everything you said there is right. But that doesn't make the overall scenario right for the UK.
No.
Labour, the senior Labour people are about getting power in Westminster. They're not about getting the local MPs elected. They don't care. If I was the leader of the Labour Party, I don't care where I get those numbers from. I just want the numbers. But if Scotland breaks away from the UK before the next election, that's it. It's curtains for Labour. Because Johnson is going to have, not Johnson, the Conservatives are going to effectively remove 52 seats from the opposition benches. That's losing their seats in Scotland, but most of the seats in Scotland are in the opposition benches. So if Scotland breaks, it's over for the UK. There's no hope because the Conservatives would have to lose The Conservatives would have to lose 74 seats. 74 seats. That's not going to happen. But there is, I did a video on it, Max. There's 39 seats with a majority of less than 5,000. 39. You get those 39 seats, and the Conservatives are out because that's a 78 majority. That's pretty damning.
But you need a coalition. You need to work with other parties in order to gain that. No.
They will, but the Lib Dems will come on board. The Lib Dems can't afford to be left out in the cold, and the Greens, and the Greens. But that's going to, but that the Greens coming on board is going to be tricky because Scotland needs that oil and gas. Scotland needs that if it comes out. It needs to have revenue, and its revenue is based around oil and gas and Scotch whiskey. And there's no Scotch whiskey leaving since Brexit. They've lost the European market. And all those small microbreweries have been hammered by it. And it was our good friend, Numpty Frost, Lord Frost, bloody hell. He was the guy who was responsible. He was the leader of the Scottish Whiskey Association. And despite, of course, having advised against Brexit, then becomes the chief negotiator of Brexit.
Like Liz Truss as well. Liz Truss was, a Remainer, and then she realised, well, I'm on the wrong bus. Jump across.
So was Boris.
Yeah.
And I don't. Two were Gove and Jacob Rees-Mogg.
I have this image of what would have happened if the vote had gone the other way. It could have still had Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, but Boris Johnson would be a pro-European. He would have been.
He would have been pro. Yes, he would have been pro-European
for his own benefit.
So many others. So would so many others. My favourite would be. I'd love to see. I would see this hope for the Conservatives if Rory Stewart came back in. I like that guy. He's a straight talker. He's a really straight talker, exceptionally intelligent guy. I'd love to see him get back in. Love to see him come back in. And I think there'd be hope for the UK if he did. But in order for the UK to get back into the EU, they're going to have to drop the pound. And looking at the performance of the pound, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, but it's very difficult
20% value.
It'd be very difficult to sell that sovereignty and all,
Yeah, sovereignty. I'll ask you a question, Max, if I may. Do you feel less Irish than you did when you were a teenager? No.
The money didn't really make any difference.
Nobody gave a shit.
It was actually. I actually thought it was quite cool. I thought it was really cool, the fact, because I remember when I was a kid, I was early teens. We went on a school trip. We visited France, Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, and then we returned.
God, you were posh. School trip. We went to the zoo.
But it was. But I remember we had to change the money all the time. So we had French francs, then we had to change it to the Swiss, then Swiss francs, and then we didn't go into Italy, but we went into what was it in Austria, Schellings or whatever.
Schelling, yeah.
Schelling, and then the Deutschmark. But when the euro came in 2002, I was like, this is amazing. Now we don't have to do that anymore, and we'll be able to buy. The internet was just starting. Really, it was still in its infancy. Really, like online shopping and that, and with Amazon, I think it was running at the time. It was you could buy something from Germany, and you don't need to worry about the exchange rate, and it was amazing.
Yeah, and you also didn't have to worry about customs. I remember when the EE started, the EEC. I remember it, but everybody thinks that the free trade amongst between European countries happened in 1974, 1975. It didn't happen until the
90s.
I think it happened in 2004. I think was when all the trade barriers came
Okay.
down and we were all trade, like they all came down. I think it was 2004, if I'm not mistaken. So it's very recent. But I remember bringing stuff in from Belgium. Oh man, it was a nightmare. But I wasn't. It was my dad bringing it in, but he wasn't bringing in a container. He was bringing in, a few rolls of fabric. But it was a nightmare with this duty and that, these inspection documents, and oh my God, it was like, what the hell? But like, I remember that. I remember going, doing an exhibition over in Earl's Court in the UK, in London. And oh my God, all the paperwork we had to do with the goods that were going over, that we were going to bring back, my dad was going to bring back from Earl's Court. And it was just mountains of paperwork. And my father had a factory the same size as your kitchen, but he was making a very specific thing. And
But I think
it
that
was,
I think that raises another point about something like trade shows. Because of COVID, there were a lot of them were cancelled or postponed. But when the trade shows start reopening, it's going to be a nightmare for British producers if they want to demonstrate their
uh,
products over in
I, I,
Europe.
I, I don't think people have a clue. Um, I don't think they have a clue what it's going to be like. It is a nightmare. You're doing an exhibition. You are on time. It's going to be impossible. You can't do it. Um, you can't. You just can't do those exhibitions. It's just the amount of money it would cost is just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Your everything goes up. Your cost of hotels goes up. Your cost of transport goes up. Your cost of the people on the stand goes up because you're rushing everything. It's no,
It's normally
no.
it's a lot of money even in normal times. We have a super chat from Alex. Thank you so much, Alex. It's a mic drop. Let's move on to the next question. I want to get through them quickly. Oh, let me bring that one up. Just bear with me a moment. We have the next one is from Matt Greek, who says, "What would you consider the smallest or the biggest factor or issue in the next general election? And when do you think that election will happen?" So maybe I'll go first. So when the next
Yes.
general election will happen, I think I have a feeling sometime next year. Maybe you'll disagree with me on that. Maybe you think it's a bit sooner, but I think there's a lot of things happening. Maybe the way the media is turning on Boris Johnson. Some of the feelers that the Conservatives are putting out at the moment, they're ramping up a lot of the rhetoric about immigration as well, which gives me and they're attacking the Labour Party on certain issues, which gives me the impression that they're in pre-campaign mode. So I think we are getting close to a general election. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I have a feeling maybe next year. And what would be the main issues? Brexit, no, but I think it'll be about recovery, and I think it'll be Boris Johnson will be or whoever's in charge will be trying to, on the Tory side, will be pushing the idea that we are the party who can recover from the pandemic. It'll be about the economy and of course immigration, because the Tories always push immigration. So I think that the three main issues, the main issues will be recovery and immigration. And
Yes.
I think it's for the Labour Party to define the NHS, for example, protecting the NHS as the main issue for them. Otherwise, the Tories are going to win it again. What do you think?
Yeah. I think what you said is right. I think they will. They can't call the next election until they've got Johnson out. That's the first thing. They have to get Johnson out. If they don't get Johnson out, they can't call the election. So that's why I think they'll have to get Johnson out this year. I think they will then, maybe January, when people got their eye off the ball, they haven't got free time to talk about things. Maybe January would be the best time to move them out. Then they'll call for an election under a new leader. I don't think they can But if they accelerate the Scottish referendum, that secures their majority forever. That's the key. For me, that's the key. It's the Scottish referendum. Um, Once they get, if they remove Scott, if they change leaders and appoint a popular leader, but he has to be given time to get things done so they can get through the next election. The one after that would be Scotland out, when they have no more excuses for Brexit. Like we all know, Brexit is a disaster. You know, it's an absolute, it's a screw up. The big announcement by Nissan, I could speak about that one. I just don't see the Conservative Party recovering if they leave Johnson there. The election will be governed by Johnson's exit. The media aren't going to stand for Johnson anymore. They want him out. So
yeah, he's past his sell-by date.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. The poison is in the water.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next question. This is from Night Raven, who asks a question for yourself. It says, how do you do research for your videos? In particular, you make videos on legal matters. Are these discussed or vetted by someone with legal training prior to posting?
I think the best way of putting that is I wouldn't really need legal training on what I post. I know enough about the law to know I don't know enough. But when I don't know enough, I will check, and I know how to check. That may answer that one. And
okay.
The other part of that question
is how do you do the research for your videos?
Laboriously. It's extreme. I'm sure, Max, you would agree. The Lugano one took me about, I calculated it. It took me 50 hours of research to make sure I was bang on with what I was talking about. And then included in that was listening to about 20 hours of video and reading the Lugano Convention and reading up on how the Hague was working out, or the Brussels one was working out. It was a lot of research, a lot of time. My wife thinks I'm gone a bit bananas.
She said, "Are you reading a nice novel?" I'm reading the Lugano Convention.
Yeah.
The Lugano.
The what?
Is it a murder mystery?
No, she did say, are we going on holidays?
Is it a nice place?
And I don't know, you're fairly close to it there. Well, you're not that far away from it. It is a beautiful spot. I've been there. Have you been there?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. But the swift answer was, I think, to my wife, as I looked adoringly into her eyes, was piss off, I'm busy. You know? Which she went, Brexit, and and walked away.
Actually, that's a question. Do people ever ask you about Brexit? When you're in Malaysia, you're wandering around, or if you're meeting with people, maybe people from the country itself. I'm not talking about Europeans, but
you mean Southeast Asians?
Yeah. Do they? No.
No.
They're not familiar with it, or it's not.
Oh, they're familiar with it. They're familiar with it. I'll tell you what they are familiar with. The big thing in Asia, if you were going to talk about the UK, it would be very much how pissed off they are with the UK over the vaccination program. That news has got out that the UK didn't send any vaccines. The EU did. They don't understand why Boris left the EU, but they don't give a shit either. I would think some of them. But the UK has done incredible damage to themselves. The bit then, and the other bit that did was the proroguing of Parliament. People knew about that.
Wow.
They knew about the proroguing of Parliament. Not everybody, but people who speak English certainly in Singapore, they knew about it. Jesus, they knew all about Brexit, and they were literally rubbing their hands with regard to Brexit. The Singaporeans are happy campers because London may want Singapore on the Thames, but they sure as hell ain't going to get any of Singapore's business. And if the London firms want business in China, they're going to have to come through Singapore or go in themselves, but they're not going to chisel in on Singapore's business or Hong Kong's business. And that's it. That Singapore on the Thames cry, that was a war cry to the Singaporeans. They didn't look upon that as a friendly gesture at all. They looked upon that as we've got a war coming, an economic war. And however prepared or unprepared Europe was or the UK was, the Singaporeans were 100% prepared for Brexit. They were prepared for Brexit before anybody else. So from that point of view, I think the UK has lost a lot of kudos because of the selfishness and the deliberate actions of the Johnson government, the Conservative governments, which quite frankly was disgusting. It was disgusting.
It was, yeah.
And that whole thing, our great vaccination program, roll out. I did a video and said, look, guys, it's like a football match. Nobody gives a toss what the score is at halftime. The real thing that matters is what's the score of full time. And the score of full time right now is basically UK 0, EU 1. And people are dying as a result of that. And that's what I feel quite sickened.
Yeah, and it sickens me as well. It was like, it was the Brexiteers were trying to spin it as we're number one, and I said in the videos, it's not a race. We're all in this together. No. We're not, and none of us are protected until we're all protected. And now we're seeing, there's a likelihood. We're seeing the consequences of that.
It's very worrying.
Yeah,
very worrying.
It is. I'll move on. The next question here is from Buxton, who says, will the UK, this is for both of us, will the UK rejoin the EU and when? Do you want to go first or shall I go first?
Yeah, no, I'll go first. No. Now, Europe, they're not going to join the EU in my lifetime. They might join the single market, but they won't get the EU. They won't get it. The damage has been too great. But the single market and customs union, possibly. But I don't think we'll see it within the next 20 years. And as I drink like a fish and smoke like a trooper, I'm at 20 years that's pushing it. And you see them getting back in?
I think it's difficult to predict the future. So I think from the position we're in now, I would say it's unlikely. But I think the UK has to exercise Brexit first. It has to be de-Brexitized, and it has to be, you have to get the likes of Farage out of there. You have to get the Brexiteers, that's out of the system. Looking at it from the point of view of today, like with Boris Johnson in charge, with Nigel Farage and GB News and all of this crap, I don't see it happening. I'm supportive of it. I would like to see the UK rejoin, but I think at the moment it's unlikely because of how toxic it has been, and yes. It would have to be in the EU's interest. And what would be the point in bringing back a country and then 6 months later they have another referendum and say, yeah, we want to go again? And that's possible if you have someone like Farage involved. So it wouldn't want that. And you definitely rejoin the single market, the customs union, maybe EEA, but then Norway might have something to say about that. But it's definitely possible to rejoin, and I think there will be, as we see more and more the impact of Brexit, there'll be more and more of a push to rejoin the single market. But rejoining as a member, I try to be positive about this, but I think a number of steps have to take place first. You need to rejoin the single market. You have to get rid of the Tories. You need a pro-European party or coalition in the House of Commons, a strong one. Bring in proportional representation, for example, to ensure that you don't have extreme parties like Farage, like the Tories. The Tories will be finished if there was proportional representation. They would
Well,
split
they
up.
did get 400,000 more votes. And they got, how many more seats, Max, did they get? Was it 40? I know they have a majority of 80, but that includes blah, blah, blah. I don't know what the actual majority, the count is, to be honest. I'm not sure
No,
what it is.
I don't remember, but they no they lost. The number of votes did not, well, the number of votes do not represent the number of seats they have in Parliament. But you can
No,
apply that, like, for
absolutely
example,
not.
the Green Party won 4 times as many as the SNP, but they only got 1 seat, while the SNP have how many seats in the House of Commons? So the first past the post system works for some, doesn't work for everyone. But a proportional
Yes.
representation model system would be much more democratic,
Yeah.
and it would kick the Tories out permanently. The Tories would split up into smaller parties, and the same probably with the Labour Party as well. They would split into a more
I
socialist
think the
party.
Labour Party have to split, quite frankly,
Yeah,
and have a strategic alliance, but they need to split. Um, but I think Starmer will lose the funding. I think he can't do it because of funding.
mm.
I think he wants to do it. I mean, Labour have grown in strength over the last 20 years in London, in the southern areas. People forget that. I mean, there's more, Labour have more MPs in the London area than they have anywhere else. Um, and I think they could take Kent, Somerset. Um, I don't think they'll get Devon or Cornwall, but they could around Southampton and Plymouth there. I believe they could take those areas off the Tories. But I think Farage is the main threat to the Labour in the north, and that's why I see that divide coming. And I think people have to step up and smell the coffee in Labour. To be frank, it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's tough. It's tough.
We'll go on to the next question. This is from Conservator, who says, what's this Irish obsession with everything? What the UK is about?
I knew, Mr. Conservator. I have to put a shout out to Conservator because I think he was one of the first subscribers and gave me a huge amount of encouragement. So a big shout out there. And there's another few people I'm trying to look at on my laptop, which has just gone a bit kiboshed.
So what's this Irish obsession with the UK, or with UK politics?
Well, it's not an obsession, first of all. It's not an obsession. There's a very keen interest. There is nothing that separates. You know, when you go on holidays or you go traveling in a various countries, everybody, Europeans will gravitate towards the Irish bar. They won't they'll gravitate towards the Irish bar. And in the Irish bar, you'll meet all nations of people. But the English and the Irish will be sitting together every time. Every time the English and the Irish are sitting together. There isn't an Irish family in history for the last 200 years that doesn't have a uncle or aunt or grandmother or grandfather in the UK. There isn't one. I have a huge amount of respect for the UK, for people of the UK. I spent most of my working life out of the UK. I have very good friends living in the UK. I have like huge ties to the UK. I have more ties to the UK than I would have to Ireland, to be frank with you. And I love Ireland. But
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? And this is something just popped into my mind just as we were talking about that. When I was a kid growing up, I remember we never referred to the British as foreigners. The French, the Germans, they were foreigners, but we'd never referred to the British. Yeah. In Ireland, we never referred.
No, never.
It was literally a foreign country because it's a different country. But we never referred to the Brits as foreigners, as British people as foreigners.
No, absolutely not.
Why do you think that's? Yeah,
they weren't. They weren't. We both spoke the same language, and they didn't curse as professionally well as we did. Um, the Irish people can use bad language better than any other nation in the world. In fact, if you don't use bad language in most cases, it means you're being rude. Uh,
You've
but
something to hide.
there is, what are you hiding? You know that. Uh, I don't see the difference between English people. I find English people exceptionally loyal friends, extremely loyal friends. Um, if and I'll give you an example. I've used this as an example as a difference between Asian people and European people. If an Irish person goes into a bar in anywhere in the UK and he asks the barman about looking for advice that involves accommodation or this or that or how to do this or how to do that, if that barman is giving that guest a bum steer, somebody who overhears that conversation will pipe up and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Don't be fooling. He's only fooling with your mate. This is what you need to do. Do this, do this, do this." Okay? That is the English way, the Scotch way, the Irish way, the Welsh way. That is our way. That is not the way in Europe. I didn't see it, Max. I know you're based in Italy. I didn't see that type of hold it. I know you and you come in every day, but this guy, you got to look after this guy. He's a tourist. He's lonely. He's in need. Look after him. I don't see that in the rest of Europe, but I do see it in England. I see it in Wales. I see it in Scotland. So long as it involves beer in Scotland, everything's okay. Scottish and the Irish, great pals, fight like cats and dogs, great pals. You know. But at the home international rugby matches, which I cherish, both in the old Twickenham and in old Cardiff Arms as well. When you have that bond, there's a bond there. There's a real bond, and I would be cheering for England to beat France. There'd be no point in cheering for Italy to beat France, or
no,
you know,
it's a wasted effort.
But they're nearly there. They're nearly there. But I would be cheering for England to beat France. But then I would be afraid of the crap I'm going to hear in the media for the next 25,000 years. But I would be cheering for them to. I would want to see them do well in the World Cup. I want to see them do well even in the Six Nations, as long as we can win, But anything but the French. I'm only kidding there. But there's just a great affinity. I don't see the difference between if you go to New York or you go into nope. I don't care if the guy's English or Irish. You'll have the Irish will crack a joke. I don't mind him. He's only English. And the English guy will turn around and tell him to go and F off. And that's like, now what are you going to say? You're dead right. Put him in his place. Shut you up. Come on over here. Get him a pint there. So I don't see any difference at all. And anything that happens in England, I mean, Ireland is basically a wart on Europe's ass. That's how significant it is geographically. But it's punching well above its weight.
Yes.
Well above its weight. And it was something that I think for the very first time, the British, I think Westminster realized it. Westminster realized that they were insignificant. And that's been the realization that they've come to.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, it's something I've really seen during the Brexit saga. How, the Brexiteers. I'm not talking about the British. I'm talking about the Brexiteers in Westminster. They wanted to push Ireland around. They want to say we'll decide where the border goes. We'll decide whether we're going to respect the Good Friday Agreement or not. And the European Union stood up for Ireland, and the European Union said, no, we have your back. And even the Brexiteers tried to put a wedge between Ireland and the EU. Divide and conquer, and it failed. And it failed because of European unity. And the
US.
Yeah, and of course, yes, the US. I just want to read a super chat from Derek McCall, who says, on the subject of Irish pubs, the one I found in Tours is called The Pale. I shit you not, I didn't go in.
Full of
It's
Jackeens, mate. It's full of Jackeens.
sometimes you find some very strange names for Irish pubs in uh, there was
Yeah,
one in
you
County
do.
Monaghan.
Yeah.
There's one in County Monaghan called the Squealing Pig. Very strange names.
You see,
As
I would expect that one in the UK. In Ireland, how dare they? A squealing pig. Was it any good? I don't
it
know
was
that
actually
bar.
it was actually quite posh. I think I went into it once and I was like, no, this is not for me.
Squealing pig was posh.
Yes,
Only in
ironic,
Ireland. Christ almighty.
Uh,
Oh dear, oh dear.
we have a super chat from Stefan. Thank you so much, Stefan. Very kind of you. It was a little icon there. I'm not sure it's sort of a dinosaur doing something strange. Okay, let's move on to the next question. We're getting close to the end. I don't know. We have maybe another. We'll give it another 10 minutes if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure, I'm fine.
Okay, and then we'll knock it on the head. Just to try and get through some more of these questions. Regan Elite says, "What are the Labour Party doing wrong, and that's not winning them votes currently?" So, what is the Labour Party doing wrong, and what should they do?
No backbone. That's the number one thing. Their media, the way they're interacting with the media. I've seen 6-year-old interns do better than that. It's appallingly bad. They have no. Starmer is showboating, and that's all he's doing. He's showboating in the House of Commons. And he's a smart dude. I actually saw him on a speak. I remember him as a Queen's Counsel. He's a smart dude. But when you had Dawn Butler who walked out, the complete lack of right, grab the moment, get in there, get behind, push it through. And why do you think she walked out? Because he is a bloody liar, and he has been telling lies all the time, and it's not good enough. And she was absolutely right. But what did we get? A milky, wishy-washy, stupid remark 3 days after the event when he was asked the question. What the I was furious at that. I was jumping up and down. Luckily, I'm in quarantine at the moment, so that happened when my wife was. I was furious. It's as well the dog wasn't in the house because it would have got a kick. Or something got kicked. You know, it was like I couldn't believe it. And I think that's a lack of backbone. I really do. Max, what do you think? I'm not sure.
No. Yeah, it's like he's too prepared. And this is what I said before. He needs to be more human. The way you reacted, well done. That's what you were supposed to do. That's what he should have done. And I think he wanted to come across as, yes, she was correct, but there are also the rules, and we have to follow the rules. That's not what people wanted to hear. What people wanted to hear is yes. And I was looking at some of the comments. So when I saw the original video, I think it was on LBC, and you know, with LBC, it's more right wing than I would say moderate. But even the comments on Twitter under the LBC video of her walking out were people who were, yeah, I don't agree with her politics, but she's dead right. She did the right thing. Yes, Boris Johnson is a liar. I don't agree. I support the Tories, but Boris Johnson is a liar. Or I don't support her. I don't like her, but I don't like her politics. I don't like her, but she's right. And that's what he could have done.
He did the right thing.
Yeah, you don't have to agree with her, but you have to agree that she did the right thing. And that was a golden opportunity for him to jump on it, say, yes, she did the right thing. This is the problem. Why is it okay for the Prime Minister to lie? Why is it wrong to call that out? The Parliament is not working. The Parliament is broken. It's not. We can't have a non-functioning Parliament. The Prime Minister lies on a continuous. These are the lies, and gives some examples. But it's almost like he has someone speaking in his ear saying, no, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that.
Yeah, he's on a PR exercise.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You should be working for him, Max. You should be doing this stuff for him. I've said it before. I've said it on some videos. You've got yourself. You've got Phil. You've got Daily Blase. I've been looking for his name to see if he appears. I haven't
He's
seen
he's
him.
usually on the stream, but I don't see
He's
him on.
normally on the stream, and he should be normally on the stream, by the way. But uh, the amount of followers that you guys have, I'm not talking about insignificant muppets like me, but you guys have some serious followers, and almost all of them are voters, and that's the big deal. They're like, I don't know how many you've got in the UK. I'm not sure of the split, but I'd be fairly sure that people who are on this channel are voters. So for the Labour Party not to engage correctly with you guys is monumentally moronic. It is monumentally. They have 38,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer has 1.1 million Twitter followers. Boris Johnson has 3.5 million Twitter followers. And it's like, there, I can see Daily Blase. I've been listening, mate. I can see him there. Yeah. He had a lot to do with me starting the channel because I was trying to release my tension and I was doing some stuff with him. And he said, mate, you got to do this yourself. So you can blame, all my subscribers can blame it all on him. And you, by the way. You kept me out of the funny farm with your videos, quite frankly. I was going crazy. My wife was going to divorce me or shoot me. I think probably it wasn't going to end well for me unless I did something. But Starmer really does need to step up. I mean, enough of this. And what you said, Max, there on the way he handled Dawn Butler, you're right. I mean, Dawn is a Corbynite. Or is she? Or was she just with the Labour? I'm not even sure she is a Corbynite.
I don't.
She sat
yeah.
on his shadow cabinet, but I'm not sure she is. I don't know. Phil would know more.
Why didn't he do something like, there, she did this, promote her the next day, put her on his shadow cabinet? That's what he should have done. And then she would have gotten the attention, he would have gotten the attention, and that's what he needs. He needs attention because unfortunately, like, you know who he is, I know who he is, people on the stream know who he is, but the vast majority of people in the UK, especially voters, don't actually know who he is. That's the problem.
I don't know certainly don't know what he stands for.
Or even worse, don't know what he stands for.
I don't know what. Do you know what he stands for? I have no idea.
No, he's not with the Tories when he doesn't want to be. That's what he seems to
tell me anything.
He's with the Tories when they do good things, and he's not with the Tories when they do bad things. That seems to be.
Yeah.
And I know maybe some people are not happy with me saying that, but that's the impression I get.
But he has. This is where I get passionate. The UK needs a stiff opposition. It has to have it. If it didn't have that stiff opposition, Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg, those two fellows.
You can swear, don't worry.
I could lose the run of myself when I talk about those two wipes. Because they were going to prorogue Parliament. The UK was that close to coming crashing out of the EU. It was that close. Sorry, something went on my phone. It was that close to coming out of the EU, crashing out, despite Parliament saying no. That's how corrupt the Tories are. When you've got a party that corrupt, you need the opposition to get in and fight. And what did they do? Especially Corbyn. And I'm going to say all of them. I don't think, standing at the dispatch box, give me a break. The country was going down in flames, and you're standing at the dispatch box. You didn't give it a few thumps. In what other parliament, in what other democracy would somebody not have been banging the shit out of the table because the guy is trying to subvert the authority of Parliament, deliberately trying to subvert it? And these guys are sitting with with Corbyn with his normal da 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 da. It was a bloody disgrace. It would, I mean, people are going to look back upon that and just remember the body language of the Labour Party when they were trying to subvert parliamentary democracy. That's what they were trying to do. Mislead the Queen, subvert the whole thing, bugger the lot of you, we're going to do what we want to do no matter what you want.
And if it wasn't for the courts, they would have gotten away with it.
Yeah, what was that lady's name? Miller. What was her name? The lady who took the action.
Gillian Miller, was it? Gina Miller.
I thought Gina Miller. If it wasn't for her, who incidentally received death threats, for Christ's sake. Death threats from stopping people from subverting parliamentary democracy. That was shocking. And Starmer is still doing the same thing. Hit the goddamn thing. Wake people up. He needs to fight.
He needs to fight, but he needs to fight both in Parliament but also out. You need the inside. You need the fight outside. Inside and especially outside. You need to be organising outside. You need to be leading marches. You need to have your firebrands in on the outside
absolutely.
as well.
You know what I was thinking, Max, after our conversation earlier today. You know, when I listen to the Conservative MPs, I'm not talking about right now in the last week or two, but previous to that, you will hear the Conservative MPs, backbenchers, frontbenchers, all saying, we are 100% that the Conservative Party has strong leadership and our Prime Minister is doing a great job and our policies, blah, 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 blah. But they will always mention the strength of the Prime Minister, the strength of the leadership of the party. In Labour, they talk about the strength of the party. They don't talk about the strength of the leadership of the party or the front bench, and they don't talk about the leader of the party. Hello? I mean, really? Labour Party have to wake up and realise that what they had done prior to this has been a failure. Corbyn's was successful for one term, okay? They didn't have a massive bloody majority either. They depended on the Lib Debs. But if Labour think that this is some magic wand is going to come in and fix this shit, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I was really hoping that Starmer was the guy to do it, to get that Tory toxic bullshit out of the UK. They're going to kill the poor people in the UK. They don't give a shit about them. I think there's people going to be freezing cold this winter, Max. Freezing cold. They're going to be cold during the winter. Christ almighty.
And I think something you mentioned as well, and about taking off the universal credit uplift, this allowance for this heating allowance is going to go, and then also the numbers who are on furlough, this is going to end as well. I just want to read out some super chats. This is from David. Thank you so much, David. Faulkner, thank you so much. Very kind of you. Let me see. There's some more. Unfortunately, I lost the screen. Just a moment. We have another one from Space Pills. Hey, thanks for supporting this charity. I'll definitely be subscribing to Fact Not Fiction. That's great. He's great. I listen to LBC most days at work.
Thank you.
They seem left since Farage left. Progressively defined, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I think they have brought on a few new people. So maybe they've decided, look, we're not going to try and follow. Well, I think maybe they're setting out a new stall, because if you look at who they're up against, there's Talk Radio and there's GB News who are accommodating the right or the far right. So maybe they are changing.
Yeah, I don't think Talk Radio. I think Talk Radio will be there, but I don't think GB News is going to be there. They've got a TV station that nobody watches.
And they have the production values of both of us.
I think that's very unfair, Max. I think we're far superior. No, but
this is a real wall.
That's a real wall, is it? This isn't. I was watching that one with Farage and Jacob Rees-Mogg, okay? And like, Jacob Rees-Mogg is a senior dude, okay? Like, he's a senior politician, and you've got Farage doing the interview, and Farage is signing off, and Farage is looking straight ahead, and he's doing about a 20-second sign off, and the camera was over there on a long shot, and they weren't on his face at all. It was like, who's what? There's no producer. The switch isn't working. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. You couldn't see Farage's face. The camera was so far away. It was like somebody had an iPhone out.
It's like as if they just brought some people in and said, look, you run the cameras, and it's like, yeah, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. You'll learn it on you learn it as you go. We have a super chat from Cahill. Thank you very much, Cahill, who says 100% on Dawn Butler, lads. Should have made hay out of that one. You should be working for him, Max. Well, no, people have said this before, but the problem is that Keir Starmer, politicians don't want to get near me. Not because I'm some cool guy or anything. It's just I'm afraid that politicians are afraid of speaking to people that they don't control. In this, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet here and being some sort of rebel or that. It's politicians like certainty. So if they were to speak with someone like me, they would imagine that I'm going to edit it, or I'm going to make them look bad, or it's a benefit for me. I'd love to do an interview with a politician. There are a number of politicians I'd like to speak to, but I think it's the format that I have. Maybe the style I have it's not very politician friendly, because I'm not going to promote the Labour Party, or I'm not going to, if somebody's doing a good job, I'll promote them. Like, I used to be a pretty big fan of the mayor of Greater London, Andy Burnham. And then I saw a clip of him from 2016 where he was saying, yeah, immigration is a serious issue. We need to bring immigration down. He's from the Labour Party. And that really burnt it for me. And if I was speaking to Andy Burnham, I'd say, like, why did you say this back in 2016? So he wouldn't like me to...
Why did you lie?
Yeah, why did you lie? Yeah. Or was it a lie? Did you truly believe this? So...
No.
But like he's seen as a future leader of the Labour Party. That's concerning. We have a super chat from Wee Scott's Dog. Sorry.
Okay. Could you tell the guys there? I'm going to go in. I'm watching the stream of Irish. I'm on as Irish Malaysia. I'm just looking at some of the streams, okay. But there's a time delay between that. It's getting very confusing.
Oh yeah, no, the stream. There's a delay between ours and it. We have a super chat from Wee Scott's Dog, who says the Squealing Pig, quite posh pub. You can get a massage or rub. It's a regular haunt of the rich, but don't taunt. David Cameron, it's his favourite club. Very nice.
Wee Scott's Dog. Is he an English?
Yeah, he's on the Discord. Holder? Sorry.
He must be an English PhD holder. He did a poem for me so fast. He wrote a poem in a comment so fast for me. I got whiplash. It was that fast. I was yeah. And he did it so fast. Brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. I think he's wonderful.
He is
wonderful.
He's a treasure.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Wonderful.
I apologize to everyone. We're not going to be able to get through all the questions, so I'll just have to pick one out. Let me see. Okay, we have to answer this question, and then I'll let you go. Irish unification. When and do you think it'll happen? Well, do you think it'll happen, and when, if it will?
Yes, it will happen. But it should not happen until the unionist community are in acceptance of it, because if they're forced, if that like toxic venom that comes out of your one Hoey and Donaldson, I think that would be detrimental for the union of the 6 counties and for the Republic. I think it would be detrimental. I don't think a lot of people in the Republic of Ireland recognize how poisoned those loyalists, I'm going to call them loyalists because that's, I don't think they realize how poisoned those loyalists have been for the last 40 years. I don't think they have any clue. You're talking about two, actually, really, you're talking about three generations of people, from 67 up to 2021. That's three generations. Irish people get married young and split out the sprogs like goldfish. So that's three generations, and there's a lot of pain there, a lot of pain, and we have to, as a fervent nationalist and Republican, would have to say that we have to be cognizant of the dangers. But all that being said, if the majority of the people in the north of Ireland wish to join to the Republic of Ireland, then it should happen. And who are we to say that shouldn't happen? I remember speaking to a guy who told me that, and he was from Belfast, and he said that the Republic had abandoned the people of Northern Ireland once, and we should never do it again. And he's right. He's right. I think if there was a vote taken today, I think they would vote to leave the Union. But I think that would be the start of the trouble. But if there's trouble, it has to be faced. End of story. It just has to be faced. The agitators within the unionist and loyalist community are well known. They're well known. I think it will happen. But I really think we have to go a long way to extend that hand of friendship. And I think they have to receive preferential treatment, because it's the only way that's going to be shown. Guys, you know that shit about the horns coming from the Catholic's head and we're all against this? It's not true. People have to discover for themselves that they've been lied to.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
No, I did a video recently where they were speaking to loyalists in Belfast about this, and they were asked about a united Ireland, and some of them said we won't be able to march, we won't be able to fly our flags, and I said in the video, look, there are people from Italy, there are people from Brazil, there are people from all over the world living in Dublin, living in all parts of the country, and they have their festivals. The Brazilians, for example, I think in Dublin have the Mardi Gras. It's very small, but it's still a celebration of their culture.
Yeah. But Irish people just want to have a party.
Yeah, but the idea that this loyalist had was that I think he felt that they would oppress us in the way that we oppress them, and he was afraid of that. He knew that in the past the Catholics couldn't vote, the Catholics were oppressed, and he knew that, but he was afraid that was going to happen. But I was frustrated when I was doing the video, because I knew that's not going to happen. Because you would be treated, if you wanted to fly your flag, no one's going to take the flag away from you, in the same way no one's going to take it.
But in a practical, sorry, I have to do my thing again. From a practical point of view, if I had a Union Jack flying in my neighbour's house and I was living in Dublin, I think I'd be pissed off with it. But I'd have to get used to it. I think we get used to Irish people adapt very quickly. We adapt very quickly. And I think I think Irish people would. I'd be saying, yeah, okay, show us, how do you play that big drum again? Show me how to play that drum with the whistle. And I think Irish people would say, yeah, okay, as long as we're going to have a party, let's go. For whatever reason, let's go. And come down to the Patrick's Day Parade. Let's start it off there. And then you'll be able to identify. I agree, actually. Come to think of it, I did think I would object to the Union Jack. But actually I wouldn't, because if it was explained, look, guys, they have to be made. Is it such a big deal? It's a bloody flag, okay? It's part of their identity. Can we shut up? Fine, let's go. Let's get on with it. I think you're right.
And I mean no offense to unionists when I say this, but it would eventually die out. This
Yes,
this
in
this
time.
not I don't mean the identity. I mean the strict wanting to be part of Britain once again. I think there would be a pragmatism towards, in every generation, and then you would then what it means to be, but also what it means to be Irish today is different to what it meant to be Irish back in the 1950s, for example.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think their view, as you said, has been poisoned. They've had, like
yes.
Farage, like the Brexiteers, they've had, or the Brexit supporters,
Well,
they've had
Farage.
they've had poison poured in their ear by people, opportunists. And I said in one of
Yes.
the videos as well, and then I'll let you go because we could talk about this all night, as you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I said in one of the videos how people like Donaldson or Sammy Wilson, they need this. They need this anger because it
Yes.
maintains their position. You know,
Their importance.
they're important,
Yes.
and if you're to speak with them behind closed doors, they would say, look, we know a united Ireland is coming. The writing is on the wall, but we can't tell the public that because then we'll be out of a job. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
and I could see a situation where Sammy Wilson maybe joins the Fine Gael or something like that. I know it sounds nuts, but in the United Ireland, these politicians would continue to do what they normally do. They would be politicians. They would be
Yes.
representing their people, but not on issues
Yes.
of sectarianism, but they'd be representing their constituents on, can we get clean water, or can we make sure that the bins are collected, or these would be the issues.
Oh, I think that would be true of Sammy Wilson. I don't think it would be true of Jeffrey Donaldson. I
Mm,
think he's a bigot in his heart. He's the guy who tore up the Good Friday Agreement.
yeah.
I mean, and did it. He did an Ian Paisley, like he didn't. Don't do your impression, by the way, please. He's the guy who tore up the Good Friday Agreement, and then he said, "No, well, that wasn't the good. That was a version of the Good Friday Agreement, and it was the Good Friday Agreement that had been put out to the media as a synopsis of it, and he tore it up in public. He was completely against the Good Friday Agreement." And now they sit there and say, "Oh, well, we want to defend the withdrawal agreement undermines the Good Friday Agreement." You go on,
Yeah.
how? Sorry, which part of it? But
It's
I
all,
think from
yeah, it's almost as ironic as
yeah,
the Brexiteers in Belfast, the what's their name, the
Hoey.
Hoey and Ben Habib saying, one of the reasons we can't have the protocol is because we have no representation in Europe. Yeah, you voted to get rid of representation of Europe. That was one of the arguments they wanted to bring down, use against the protocol. People in Northern Ireland have no representation in Europe.
Yeah, yeah. You could imagine that one on a Friday night in a bar with about 5 or 6 pints. It would be like it'd be the guy holding the pint. It'd be going, "Hold it, say that one again," and then it would be followed with a swift, "Oh, will you shut up, you tart?" It would be like this. That'd be a common trigger. Would make the Del Boy or Rodney. That would be a trigger comment.
Yes.
With everybody continue the conversation, and then what? Shut up.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we'll have to stop it there. So thanks a million.
Yes.
Thanks a million for coming on. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on the stream tonight. We're up to, well, I haven't checked it, but we're at 330 viewers. That's amazing. So
But only 233 likes. God damn it, Janet.
damn it, smash that
God
like
damn it,
button.
Janet.
So make
That's
sure
it.
to check
Although I
out.
have to tell you, I didn't do it myself. I didn't smash it myself. I didn't smash it myself. And if the guys are there, if they please watch my channel.
Do
And
check it out.
a special shout out to Conservator, to the wee dog, the Bershoff, Franita, and I'm useless with names, and I apologize, but there's some of the guys, Killer Kung Fu, RC, Tom Nelson, Chatty Rat, not as regular as he was, I have to tell you. So he can bugger off. There are a few guys there who have been really Monkeytron. Your guy Jim Prosser was there as well. RC was there. There are, and Vicky, and there's so many that I really have to say thank you. And most of all, I want to say thank you to you, Max, because you kept me out of the funny farm. And my wife will be eternally grateful that I've had an avenue to vent my frustration that I was encouraged by Daily Blase to do. So thank you, Max. Really, really. The work that you've done is absolutely fantastic. I love the impartiality of it. We have a different style. I'm more aggressive, and I get Neanderthal. I go a bit caveman on it, but that's my style. It's the way I've always been.
And that's what we need.
Fantastic job.
We all have our different lines of attack, and I think it's important that we all work together, and if we can help each other out. And I hope to see you doing some live streams in the future, if you can get around to it.
I have 200 subscribers, Max. You have nearly like 1 billion of them. I've got 200. Although Conservator will probably be able to tell me exactly how many I've got. Because
I hope from tonight it's going to go up a bit. So
I have to tell you, my wife set the alarm so that she could watch it. So if you're out there, Chrissy, I'm thinking of you. Because we had a new granddaughter, and I got COVID, and she's been in isolation, and the whole thing is going all over the place, and we're trying to get flights back to the UK, and throughout all of that, your channel kept me sane.
Thanks.
Your channel kept me sane, and I think you've done a fantastic job. And you call them your moderators.
No, I couldn't do it without the people on the stream, and the moderators are doing
wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful, absolutely wonderful work, and that's because of you and because of their good graces. And it's wonderful. Thanks you.
Thanks a lot.
Really, thank you. No, you deserve all the thanks. I'm sure everybody would agree with me.
That's enough. That's enough. You know, we're a modest folk. We get too big-headed.
No, this wee Scots dog is not modest.
So thanks very much for coming on. So I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for all of those super chats. I'm gonna, when I compile them all together, I promise I'll post a total and on the community page. Thanks once again, and thanks to the moderator for doing a fantastic job. This week, from tomorrow, I'm on holiday for about a week, so the next live stream will be on the 31st of August. Same bat time, same bat channel, 9:30 British summer time. So I want to say thanks to everyone. Have a great weekend. As always, stay safe. Do you want to say anything before we go?
My wife was just saying I'm on stream there. I just saw her. So go to bed, you crazy girl.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night.
All right. Take care.